Hello, everyone. How are you? Tammy, I'm so sorry. I was in the green room sending you messages and you were like, I'm in IG. And I'm like, no, but I'm in Fireside. You're like, yeah, so am I.
Yeah, I didn't know to go. I don't know to go in the green room. I haven't guested enough with people to know to go to the green room. So that's my bad. I just wait and they start the show and then I send my, hey, speaker request.
Yeah, no worries. I'm so sorry. Cause all of a sudden I was like, well, maybe I was like, I know we didn't touch base because I figured, whatever. So
No,
welcome
it
to
was all
YNS.
good, all done. I'm here, you're here. Hey,
Yes.
what we got, we have.
Perfect. Yes. Well, everyone, welcome to YNS Live. I am your host, Juliette Hahn, and you guys all know Tammy. Oh my God. I am so excited to dive into this. I think we met in a room, and I'm trying to think of whose room it was, but it was really funny because
Ross the
yes,
boss. Ross the boss.
yes. And we started talking about sports, kids sports or something. Cause I was sitting outside with waiting for soccer. And then we really started talking and we both, you had me cracking up because it was just so freaking funny.
Yeah. Well,
So anyway,
and I watched your NFL thread because I'm the daughter of a former pro football player. And I used to have seminars years ago before it was popular, teaching. Like I would take an hour and debrief women on the NFL and the NBA so they could spend time. It's archaic, I know, but with their husbands and their boyfriends and understand what was going on.
no, I love that. And I don't think I knew that about you. So I even love that even more. Oh my gosh. We gotta dive into that too. Well, so anyone that doesn't, can you just introduce yourself so people that don't know can get a little sense of you?
Well, I'm Tammy and I'm a comedian. I don't like to go through all the, I'm a comedian. So if you don't know me, that's okay. But if you're in comedy, you know who I am. And that's
yes.
that.
And funny. I mean, I absolutely love your stuff. My face hurts just watching and listening to you. And I think when we were talking about it was because you have, how many kids do you have? You have teens as well.
I just have one that I know about. And yeah, he's 14 now. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, what sports does he play? Because I know that's because I have a 14-year-old as well.
Who knows? Everything from football to basketball to wrestling to now I have to leave here because we have a track meet. There's just always something. But that's, again, I grew up with that. My father was a coach after football and my brothers were into all the sports and, they were wrestlers in Iowa. My brother was a state champ in Iowa. So sports has been always on the tip. And I think that's what made me such a good comic. I'm not saying that's such a good comic. That sounds horrible, but so good at the business of comedy because I always wanted to win or at least have a plan if I lost, how to come back and win again.
Right. So tell us a little bit about, so your dad played in football. For what team? And
so it was again, old days. He literally played for what they called the minor leagues back then.
Yeah.
So it was, and he played for the St. Louis Cardinals, and then their farm team, which was the Defiance Generals, and then went up and retired with just one down with the Cleveland Browns because they were trying to do something nice for the hometown boys. So. That's okay. My dog and my cat are running in and out.
Carly Jane, come here, please.
And I have a home phone that I unplug, but who knows? Sometimes, the people override it.
Yeah, no, totally. Okay, I'm gonna have you. She's gonna keep yelling. Carly Jane, come here. This is actually the first time. First time I've had the dogs bark on a show, and I do this with them sitting there every day, and so it's actually really funny. There must be something really
Hello, Carly Jane. Hello, Carly Jane.
I love it. So you have, a lot of background. You said you have brothers. So were you the only girl or do you have?
Yes, which also led to my comedy. It's often been said that I was, as strong and fast and still throw the best spiral in the family, but they got stronger and faster just by pure genetics. So they could never outrun my mouth. and that's how it all started.
Well, I love that. So I have two boys and then my daughter, and it's really interesting to see. I grew up with sisters and one brother, and we were tough. I mean, we all played sports, and we were not.
Mhm.
My brother would always say, like, I learned nothing from you ladies. Like, you did not give me what normal women are. You guys were not normal women. You weren't gossipy. You took 5 minutes in the shower. Like, you threw makeup on. You were all like seemed put together, and so we always laugh because when he was date people, we'd be like, wow, there's a lot to them. And we were all big personalities, but just there wasn't a lot of drama behind us. And really every single one of us, there wasn't a lot of drama, which is kind of funny. So having two boys and then having a daughter and watching her kind of navigate, and she's balls to the walls. I mean, when she would, friends, she says it how it is. She is not like a sensitive flower. We,
That's
didn't
important.
raise her that way. Well, it's really important, right? I mean, because you can have families that it's like, oh, you're the only girl, you're the princess, right?
Well, I was told I was the princess, but my father was clear he was the king. So, like, he goes, if you're the princess, that makes me the king. But I also think that, look, I have always been attracted in friendships to alpha females. Now,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely room for girly girls, and I respect that. It's just, I'm almost like a guy when it comes to it. I don't understand it. So I never knew that you could write a note and get out of gym class and say you had cramps. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I had to learn all this dumb stuff. I had to do the parachute thing and the sit-up challenge and try to climb a rope. I should have had cramps. I didn't know all that stuff. So I think there's always something to be said. I love that. I found that out later in life. I mean, I moved to Los Angeles and moved into what I lovingly refer to as a stripper colony. And I think those women who I would have never hung out with had it not been LA. And as a comic, I had Monday and Tuesdays off, and that's what strippers have, same time off. They taught me how to be girly. They taught me how to put my makeup on right. They taught me how to do, I always loved fashion, but they taught me how to flirt. I did a joke about it once on one of my Tonight Show sets. I don't remember which one, but you have to ask Ross. But I was like, I flirt from Joey from Friends. How you doing? You know what I mean? Like I was never good at that stuff.
No, but it's just so funny because even though I had sisters, I kind of grew up where like my pup is like literally, can you guys look at this? Ready? You want to see this?
Oh, hey.
That's Herbie. That is Herbie Hahn. So they're like literally like on top of me. This is, of course, I'm so glad it's with the
good.
community.
I like when dogs show up in the thing because I want to let people know, yes, I have a security system, and yes, I have hidden weapons. I also have an animal that will get you. So let's also get that clear. You can walk to my door. You just probably won't walk out of my door.
No, totally. I'm going to actually get up and let them out because they're going to go and be crazy. So I'm going to have you tell us your, when you get prepared for like a comedy set, what do you start doing? Like, or is it just come
That's
right now?
boring. I do nothing, but go ahead and get up and
okay, just give me one.
Go ahead. My dog, by the way, just so everybody knows, has been ringing the bell. If you hear a bell ringing, I taught my dog to ring a bell to go outside because I did do a show with Cesar Millan, and I've done random shows with random people. Cesar Millan taught me how to teach my dog how to ring a bell. Guy Fieri told me how to use the School of Boss, the colander correct. And Rocco DiSpirito taught me how to put the silverware out correctly because I didn't really know how to do all that. So,
okay, so I love that I just got that.
I don't do a prep for my show, Julie. I've been doing it for 26 years, and there may be a joke or two that I go through my head, but there's no real prep for me because it's what I've been doing for so long. I put my 10,000 hours in. That doesn't mean I don't work at my show, but my routine is to there's no prep because I don't know how anybody's going to respond. I have to do it, and it's out there, and I know immediately whether the joke works or it doesn't, and maybe should I move it? Is it something they need to get to know me first? Is it something that goes with something else? Like I'm in a whole rebuild because in 2020, I have a couple specials, but my special, the Way After School special, came out on Prime, and it came out literally March 17th. So yes, great numbers. Got great numbers, wonderful numbers.
Yeah.
They want to do another one. The only thing is, though, is I didn't have time to rebuild it because we are now just getting back to work. And I write with the muse and I have to perform it. So.
No, I love that. And you know what? Thank you for talking. I was all of a sudden like, oh my God, thank God I have pants on. Because
that's happened before.
Yeah, totally has happened before. And literally I was like, what am I wearing underneath? Because
See, I admire this. I never, like everybody for years would say to me, you have to have a podcast or you have to have this. And all my creativity was focused on the stage and trying to make sure that I had a new hour and new jokes and I didn't, in a weird way, the shutdown allowed me to venture into this because I kind of felt like, I don't have anything to say outside of jokes. So this is a real interesting thing and it's new. I admire you and what you've done with it.
Oh, no, thank you. Well, it's so funny when you said how you just kind of go and you just do your set. And that's like, we talk about this on the podcast all the time. Like when you are in your elm, like when you are, whether you believe in God or the universe, when you're in that space, and as you said, it doesn't come easy, but it just comes naturally. I love that you said that because I literally got goosebumps because that's when I started this, 2-3 years ago, it was like, wait a second. This is like, I know what I'm doing. Like if anyone's like, hey, can I give you a tip? I'm like, you can give me a tip, but this just comes naturally to me. Like I don't want to get myself all intertwined and overthinking because that's not me anyways. But when you're in like when you are in what you are supposed to do, it kind of just flows. So I love that you said that.
Yeah,
I think
it was hard for me
and it just shows.
Well, thank you. I had a hard time with podcasts and things in general for me, not to join it, not to listen to them, but for me, because I simultaneously did an open mic that was sponsored by a radio station. So as I became a comedian, I was offered a job doing morning radio, and morning radio was so succinct. And so you had to say this at the right time within this many seconds and drop this and say that. So the podcast, the free flow, I was a little lost. I was like, wait, what do you mean? You can cough? You can, you know what I mean? Like you get up and let your dogs out. Like, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff. And I love it's funny. The thing that I had the hardest time with was the thing that I found the most attractive. It was a real moment. Like, you know what I mean? That. I'm in the middle of this with you. But if I were just watching, you getting up and letting your dogs out is a real moment to me that I would be highly attracted to.
Well, that's true because it's not scripted. And there's some, there are some people that are a little bit more, where they have to be a little bit more organized because that's the way their brain works. Like when people ask me like, okay, how did you start this? And what tips can you give? I always say you need to know how you work best, right? So I know if I'm dyslexic. So if I have like a paper with all this stuff written on it and I have to read it, like I have to practice that stuff, but like I can talk for hours. I can talk to myself for hours. I can talk to the dogs for hours. I can tell a story to anyone because that's what I'm natural at. And so I would love for you to just give me really quickly when you figured out that you wanted to be a comedian. Like, did that come like when you were younger? Just can you give us a little bit of that background?
Yeah, no, here's the thing. I love stand-up. I love to laugh. I didn't grow up in a family that had a ton of laughter. It's not that we laughed, but it wasn't we didn't sit down and watch comedies together or things like that. We laughed a lot at, if you fell off your bike and you weren't hurt, we were busting up. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Slip on the ice. It was my favorite time of the year, ice slip season. But like I grew up, I was a good kid. I was afraid to disappoint my parents, but I loved stand-up. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Consumed it in all ways. Even had an Eddie Murphy tape at age 14 that I wasn't supposed to have, like this contraband. I'll never forget. After church, we stopped at what was the equivalent of the Walmart back then, Kmart. And I told my mom, I have to use the restroom as she had checked out. And I ran and got the Eddie Murphy tape and bought it from one of my friends' older sister who was a cashier because they wouldn't sell you something when you were 14, right? Like, right. And I hid it. This is the sneakiest I got. I hid an Eddie Murphy tape. I went into my closet with a sleeping bag and the old pressed down tape so I could hear it like at nighttime when I was supposed to be in bed. But it never occurred to me to be a comic because for whatever reason it was, because I know why. It's a tough business. The women that I saw during that time, I couldn't relate to. They were talking about their husbands, or they were talking about their kids, or their sequins, or their facelifts. Exactly where I am right now in my life. Okay, but and then I'll never forget. My parents moved while I was in college. I was a fashion design major. I was going to go away for the summer, or for after summer. I was hanging out with them in that summer. Didn't know anybody. There was a comedy club. I said, I have a fake ID. I can work over there and serve beer, watch comedy, make some friends, make a little money, and then I'll go to New York in the fall. And a woman came through, and she was young. And they have a comedy is three part outside of like New York or LA or San Francisco. It's an MC feature and a headliner. And she was an MC. And I was talking to her, and in my opinion, at the time, I did not think she was very funny, but she was telling me how she was traveling all around the country and going all these places. I was like, I could do that. And with my big mouth, I went home and said, I'm as funny as this girl. And then a $50 bet with my brothers, my entire career started. So,
oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
And so how many brothers?
I have 2, but I have 11 first cousins. And at the time, 2 of my first cousins were living with us. They're all boys too. 11 first cousins that were all boys.
And I now I need to know more about that story. So how did 50, like what did you say to them? What did they, how did it?
So I went to the manager, and I was like, I think I want to try open mic night. I think I might be a good comedian. She was like, good, because you're a crappy waitress. And I was like, okay, you have to give me, I need to see your first 3 minutes. You'll have 5 minutes. And I was like, I got hours, but you don't realize how important it is. Sure, you can entertain 5 million of your friends, but to have people who pay money to see you, 3 minutes is extravagant. So I submitted my material. And my first joke I ever wrote was something I used to say at the nightclubs back then, because I have large breasts. I have large features, big eyes, big nose, big mouth, big breasts. And guys would say, are those real? Because it was a time when, people didn't know, there weren't a lot of breast implants. And I would say, they would say, are you, I can't even remember this stupid joke, but they go, are those real? And I'd say, don't you think if I'd had that kind of money, I'd have had my nose fixed first? So that was my first joke that I unknowingly wrote. And then I kind of just went from there.
I love that. So, this is actually funny, because I have strong features too, my ears and my nose. And I always say, they grow forever. So I have, as I stated in the beginning, I have sisters and a brother. And so I always tell them I'm the hottest right now. I was not the hottest when I first was born, but I'm the hottest now. And I was like, give it like 10 years and one of you outtake me, because my nose and my ears will now be out of proportion to my face. And they're like, you're such an asshole. And because they are like, we're attractive. I'm like, you are, but I'm so much hotter right now. Like everything fits. And then
that's funny. I have the opposite. I just went to I joke about it in my act now, but I gained a lot of weight during quarantine. I also turned 52 during quarantine. I'm full-blown menopause. I have liver disease. I have a lot of thyroid issues. So I gained a lot of weight. I gained a lot. And my brother said to me the other day, he looked at me, he goes, what, you don't work out no more? I'm like, oh, I'm going to kill you. No, I don't. Because once I found out that someone could eat a bat and kill us all, I'm over it. I'm like, why am I at the gym?
Right. Now, where did you grow up?
Cleveland, a little suburb of Cleveland, a little town called Perry, Ohio. It's where I filmed my last special. I went back to my old high school because my guidance counselor in 10th grade, when I said I wanted to be an actress, I knew I wanted to perform. I just had no idea that comedy was it. And comedy came natural because if you forgot, I was always in all the plays and stuff. If you forgot your lines, I would ad-lib you back to book. So I knew that I could do stand-up because that's just ad-libbing for yourself, right?
Right.
So I went to my guidance counselor. I said, I want to be an actress. And she busted out laughing right in my face and said, you're from here. No one from here has ever been on TV. If you're going to be on TV, you're going to have to rob a bank. And she just laughed me right out of her office. So I was going to, not only I went back, the idea was that I put the entire town on TV. I had the kids work with professionals in the entertainment industry. We set up a scholarship, and I was going to make her introduce me, and she died 2 weeks before. So hey, revenge is not best served cold. You got to get right back in there. But yeah, that was what that was all about.
You know what? It's so funny that you said I guess it's not funny, but guidance counselors, I played sports. And so I was dyslexic, as I said. And so school came really hard for me, but I was really, really good at athletics and I wanted to go to college. And she would tell me, you're not going to go to college. The town I grew up in, everyone was good at everything. Like my friends were really good in sports. They were like all, getting recruited by Harvard, Yale and stuff. But I was just as good as them as in sports, maybe even better. And I remember being like, what? You don't tell someone that. Like you don't tell someone they're not going to go to college. So when I did go to college and I got on the honor roll, my mom sent the letter because my mom is in education and like very big and like, with a sticky. Don't tell people what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. Like what an asshole.
Yeah, misguidance counselors, right? Now, let me ask you something. As someone, for me, who was in really, truly a male-dominated field until probably the last 10 years, I've seen the explosion. And somewhere in my brain, whether it's true or not, I like to feel like I had something to do with that with 100% female.
100% you did. Yes, you did.
And as someone who participated in sports, and I quite honestly fought for women's sports, a lot of us of our generation, because the first thing when a school closed a budget, they would do is get rid of the girls' sports, get rid of volleyball, get rid of cheerleading, get rid of baseball, track, all the girls' stuff. Girls' stuff went first. People don't understand that nowadays, that we literally, in the past 30 years or so, that they're available, because a lot of time, like when I started school, there wasn't a girls' basketball team. It developed. Right. So, how do you feel about, because I have a friend who had a daughter who was literally like a hurdle specialist, like training at age 14 for the Olympics, and it becomes her senior year. And she's now very nervous because the lead in her league now is a transgender girl. How do you stand on all that right now?
We're getting controversial here. Okay.
Well, it's not, and I don't want to make it controversial because I want it to be, listen, I love inclusion. Let me be clear so no one thinks that it's controversial. I love inclusion. I also started the PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays in college. In high school. So I'm totally down for all inclusion. I'm just wondering if we're doing a disservice to
we are.
All of our children, whether they're transgender children or biologically or starting as male.
So here's my thing. So where I grew up, we were actually very fortunate. The women were stronger in sports than the men. And so this is what we always laughed. It was like a wealthy town in New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia. And so my mom would always say it was all like the very athletic, very pretty women that married dorky men from other places. So the men weren't athletic, but the women were athletic, right?
That's right.
But they were like wealthy and they were super successful. So I never had that. But I would say now, like with the swimming thing, that angered me because I was like, well, hold on. We're like putting women back down. Like again, I have two boys. You grew up in the man's world, and with your family, and you have a son. Men are for the most part built stronger, right? But I have a daughter that I've always told her you can do anything, and my daughter is super strong. She was a gymnast, super athletic. You can do anything, but there's a certain point, right, that a male is going to, for the majority, be stronger. So
that's why I don't play football, because I would have loved to have been a lineman.
Totally, right?
That's why someone wants to get on my stage. You should try, because I've been dying to hit someone since the 90s.
I love that. I love that. So I have a problem with and again, I don't want to say it in the wrong, but with a male that has changed into a female, but later in life. So they've developed they have gone through everything. They've gone through puberty. They are a man, and then they decide to be a transgender. That I'm fine. My sister's gay. I have my nephew. I am all about be who you want and yell it out from the rooftops. I don't care about any of that, but I feel
we're specifically talking about competition right now.
I don't think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong because it is, again, putting the woman, like the women, we have worked so hard and for things, and all of a sudden it's
Hey,
like,
I was
oh,
mad at Caitlin for taking Woman of the Year. I'm like, you've barely been a woman. I'm happy you look beautiful. But listen, I think I
yeah,
don't want to put you on I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
no,
It's
it's
just
totally
that
fine.
it's a really big question. And I feel like we're really not serving. There's something new now. There's we have to include, but perhaps we need to have delineating lines. You know what
No,
I mean?
and you know what? And it's someone in a year or 2 years is going to come back and be like, "Who made that decision? That was so dumb." It's because no one wants to say no because they don't want to get canceled, they don't want to get in trouble. So people are not really thinking fully that the girl that won that, NCAA swimming,
Hmm.
I don't know when she transitioned, but if I was the other, the one that came in second, I would be pissed
Well, and
because
I feel like they all listen. It is so hard to compete. When I said that I wanted to continue my comedy career when I was pregnant, I never even thought about it. But it was literally, I'm telling you, my agent said to me, I sat down in his office. By the way, I was so Hollywood emaciated that I hid it till I was 5 months pregnant. And I said, I'm pregnant. And he goes, oh, well, I guess your career's over. And I said, this wasn't a ruse to get a man. I'm like,
right.
what do you think? And he's like, well, I've never seen a pregnant woman on stage. And it also gave me one of my best jokes because I did reply, you've never been to a really bad strip club. But I think I think people put on other people what their presumptions are. And I think in these sporting events, we really are doing such a disservice to this generation that feels strong enough to transition. And by all means, if you've come, that poor girl who came in second place, she's allowed to be disappointed, and it has nothing to do with her being prejudiced or
No, that's the thing. And
so
that's,
it's so
yeah,
hard. We have to
it's real.
really find a way to meet.
We have to really find a way to meet. And it is. And the other thing that it's also, I think it makes other people angry that don't need to be angry, right? Like it's bringing an attention to, like, I was annoyed at like, I was like, I would be ashamed if I were her, like of her, like, I'd be like, no, I don't want to compete. But again, that's my initial thing. Like if I worked my whole career and was so hard, and then someone said, well, I'm transitioning, which, as I said, that's wonderful, transition, but don't then be like, okay, and you're 13 inches taller than me. Like,
I think it was Billie Jean King said the needs of the, like, she quoted Spock, the needs of the one don't outweigh the needs of the many. And I think we just have to find a way. It's nice for me when I see women being part of comedy. I filmed, there's a thing on the East Coast, you probably are familiar with it, NESN, NESN Sports. They
yeah,
did a comedy thing, and I was 7 months pregnant, and they didn't want to play it because I was pregnant. Then you cut 2 years later, 10 years goes by, and Ali Wong is doing her comedy special, and they're like, oh, it's breakthrough. And I'm like, it is breakthrough because you couldn't see it, but we have been trying. They just kept pushing us down.
pushing back. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I just think that to me, everyone, and really just the way everything is right now, everyone just needs to not be an asshole, and just like, just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean you don't like the other people. You have like prejudice here. It's just, if we all could just get along and respect each other for what everyone's doing, and everyone just be nice and like not be assholes, I feel like we would be in a different
It's very
place.
hard. You can't critique. There are certain people you can't critique because they take it like to heart, and I'm like,
Oh, there's so many people who are too sensitive. There's a
yeah.
lot of too sensitive right
Well, you
now.
better not be in public. Okay, that's all I'm saying. If you're sensitive, you better not put out anything creatively in public because you'll constantly be criticized no matter
Right.
what.
And I have to say, we are a huge comedy house. Like we like love stand up. I mean, our kids have seen stuff that sometimes I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
think that was I don't think that was appropriate, but all right, Um, so I mean, love stand up. And I would love for you to give a little insight, because that you just kind of brought a good, something up. As we have talked in the house, like, it has to be really hard to be a comedian now, because everyone's getting canceled. Like, it's like you say the wrong thing and it's like you're canceled, and people can't take a joke. You're not, it's there's such a fine line. So I would love your take on that right now in
Yeah.
the world.
Well, I mean, it's twofold, really. Number one, people are getting canceled because the world is consuming comedy in 30-second clips of comedians you were never supposed to watch. They're not meant for your demographic. So that means someone is watching you and not knowing your voice. Comedy was built on you created a fan, and then that fan followed you down that road. If you take anybody's life in 30-second snippets, you don't know their heart, you don't know the mindset, you don't hear it. So I think that's one of the problems. The second part for me is I was one of the first people canceled, and I was canceled for telling the truth. I lost my agent and my manager in work and was slandered by everybody. So I'm able to handle it because my audience, all that I had left at that time, was my fan base. And they embraced me and held me. And I began selling out after that because they knew that I had been the people who followed you. I had put the time in, the grassroots campaign, if you will. There weren't millions of them, but if there were 247 people at that show, there were 247 people who loved me. So they followed me down that road.
Right.
And then helped me. They really helped when I was like, they knew what I was going through. So they recruited people. They were like, you know what? We have the same sense of humor. You should watch this female comic. And, and that's how it happened for me a little bit more. That's how I got out of that hole. But no, I'm not afraid. I say at the very beginning, I don't like that I was really shocked in the past 2 weeks that people could defend someone getting physically hurt over words. Blown away. I couldn't believe how many people could justify that action. And then I had to stop back and go, yeah, that's because they're in their homes. They literally, they have no sense of humor at all. And the problem is we take on the world collectively now on social media instead of just one at a time having conversations.
Right. And everyone, and you brought it up so well that you had your fan base. They knew your heart. They knew who you were as a person. So it was like, okay, no, this is a joke. So, I mean, I applaud, you for what you do because it can't be easy, especially in this day and age with the whole cancel culture. I mean, cancel culture makes me absolutely insane because I'm like, what happened? It's like, what happened? And I thought it was going to definitely get better. It just seems to keep getting like worse and worse.
It was getting better until the slap. I created a show called Cancel This Comedy Tour where I put some comics on it that had been canceled. And we were having some success. And now I don't even feel like going out with it because I feel like people we'll wait and we'll go try again. But I think people got the physical violence is bizarre to me. And it's just, it's never okay. And you see it everywhere now. I mean, literally 3 days after that, there was a kid who was running cross country and someone clocked him. Another student clocked him. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
Because he was winning. Just came up and sucker punched him to the back of the head because he was beating him. Okay, whatever. I don't know. I can't do it anymore. All I can do is take care of me. I know my intent. Yes. I did not get in boxing. I did not get into the MMA world. I got into the opposite of a violent job. Right. My job was to make people laugh. If you want to fight, if you want to be miserable over something that I assume it's not bullying, I'm not coming to your house. I'm not coming to your job. I don't even know 90% of the time individually the names of the audience. It's collective. So if you feel like it's bullying, you need therapy, not comedy. Like I can't help you. Like, I tell jokes about my brother. I tell jokes about his wives. I tell jokes about my husband. I tell jokes about me because those are real life things. And I'm allowed to narrate my life. I'm allowed to. If they want to get on stage, they want to start a podcast, they want to have the opposite opinion. Those forums are open for them too. They just happen to not do it because they need me to pay for their divorces and DUIs.
Right. So. Oh my God. But I so appreciate you. And I'm sure a lot of stories growing up with brothers, You have to have a lot of them. And I have to,
Tons and tons.
tons. So this, you'll appreciate this. One of my best friends was the only girl and she had three brothers. And our friend Amy Chodikoff, who was this, Amy, if you're listening, bright red hair. She actually had to sit, she wasn't allowed to sit near the window because she would get burnt by the sun coming in. That's how pale she was. Okay. She was so pale. And she was over at Dana's house and we were all playing and she comes out of the bathroom. She's like, look at this cool thing. We probably were in like third grade. Okay. She had one of her brother's cups over her face.
Hysterical.
She comes out and my friend Dana's like, ew, put that down. And she's like, why? What is it? She's like, that goes over, it is a cup, it covers their balls. And she was like, through this thing. And I'll never forget because my brother was little at that time. And I was like, what do you mean? How does this all fit? And I was like always fascinated by the cup. So when my kids got older and they started playing sports with cups, I would literally, because you would lose them, right? So it would be like, boys, where's your freaking cup? And this is when they played baseball and I guess lacrosse for a bit. And so I would have it in my purse. And so one time when I was in Whole Foods, I went to go like find my wallet and I was taking things out and I put the cup on and I couldn't stop laughing. I had to call my friend Dana and I was like, I'm in the cup world now. Like, where's Amy Chodikoff? You got to call her because I'm literally carrying a cup around and putting it out on like the conveyor belt at Whole Foods.
Hey, what happens? You get a quick sip of water.
Totally. So tell us just like one of your favorite stories of growing up. I mean, I'm sure that's so hard. Most memorable, like something that comes to your like mind right now.
Yeah, I've mined all the stories for my act, quite honestly. I mean, there was a million of the stories, that, my brothers, one kind of followed along that we used to call them linguine and fettuccine, which are like in Italian is the tall and thin and the short and fat. And I had the one brother that I talk about a lot, and he just used to sing all the time at the top of his lungs. He had a great voice, but he never understood because we didn't have liner notes. You couldn't ask Siri, and he would sing these songs all the time. And like we'd put on shows for our parents and he'd be like, every time you go away, you take a piece of meat with you. And like, instead of take a piece of me, and then another one rides the bus. And you couldn't tell him otherwise. And that's what I should have known then, that he was going to grow up and be trouble for us because he just wouldn't. Listen, the whole world knows it's Another One Bites the Dust. You see the record? At least that's the title on the record. I can't read.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. So where are you in that? Are you the youngest?
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest of my brothers, but I'm younger than the two cousins who lived with us. So yeah, it was fun. It was a fun time growing up.
I'm sure. And that's one thing. It is so, people will say, I've had people say like, oh, it must be so hard to raise kids nowadays. But I always will say to them, think about all the different generations, all the things that have happened in other, like 9/11, the wars, like from, that our parents lived through. And I'm like, it's just, we all navigate it the best that we can. I wouldn't say that raising kids now is harder than it was 15 years ago. It's just different. It's just, you have to navigate it differently.
The entire last special was about, if you ever watch it, it's I literally say too many generations are alive at the same time. It's not that we're trying to fight. We just grew up completely different. And that's what that whole special just lays out, the differences of we didn't talk to our kid. They didn't talk to us. There was no, I said, like the joke is, I told my father I'm cold and he was like, no, you're not. Like they told us how to think. They told us how to feel. Now we're supposed to be the parents that talk to our kids and go, how do you feel about that? I'm like, it's so foreign to me because kids were not supposed to be part of the conversation.
Yeah. It's so, because I'm 16, 14, and 12, my daughter's the youngest. And I am all about communication. And whenever something, like if someone's a little quiet, I'm like, what happened? Something happened at school? And they're like, why does something always have to have happened? And I'm like, you got to talk about it. Like if you're feeling depressed, you got to tell me. And they're like, Mom, we're not feeling depressed.
I know. Well, I also so here's a mommy thing. I do monitor his activity, much to my husband's dismay. He's like, he needs to have his privacy. I'm like, yeah, no. he's a good kid and he's got straight A's for years but I need to see what else other people are doing. So literally yesterday, I'd been out for a few days and I just thought I'd take a scroll through Snapchat, see what he was looking at. And I saw that one of his friends that used to be his little buddy is hanging out with a group of kids and they were older. And this older kid took his little brother and body slammed him. The little boy the kid was a big chooch. He was probably 14, 15, 16 years old, like in high school. And he took his little brother, like 4 or 5 years old, and slammed him. And the kid was clearly crying. And of course, all the other kids were laughing. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this because I'm not really supposed to be on his phone. He's not doing it. How do I don't know that kid, his parents. How do I follow that down that whole link?
Right. Oh, that poor little guy. Right.
Yeah. And he was like hysterical crying. And and I took all the classes. So I'm like a court mandated reporter, like, because I want to be able to hang out at the school and steal extra time with my kid when I'm at home on the road. So I'm just that's what I'm in the middle of right now because it's all about, he didn't rat on them. He didn't even know that I saw it. So now after school today, we're going to have a conversation so I can figure out who that kid is and who that family is. And now I'll be honest, who knows if the family even cares.
Right. But, I know. But still that little guy, that's so sad.
Yeah. It's super sad. I can't believe, like, I want to I hope I don't run into that big chooch at the track meet because I think I have to knock him out.
Right. Hey, where's your brother?
Beat up random kids. But I saw what you did. Like you body slammed a baby.
Right. And also you put it on. So the other thing is, this is what I say to my kids all the time. Be aware of your surroundings and don't be an asshole. And I have very good, very good kids, but like there was my oldest, when we first moved to the town we live in now, probably 7 months in, I get a call and he's never been in trouble. And I get a call and they were like, Montgomery's been involved in a fight. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's been involved in a fight. He doesn't fight. I was like, I need to know more. I don't know what you mean. They're like, there was a fight. He was watching. And I was like, okay, so he wasn't involved in the fight. He was watching a fight. I was like, I need to know more. Like, what do you mean he was watching a fight? Like, did he walk by? Like, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions.
Is it Seinfeld? Like, you remember, like, the end of Seinfeld when people had trouble, they were prosecuted for not getting involved in the fight and letting it happen.
Right. So they're like, he was the watch out. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Montgomery's not the watch out. Like, I need to know more about this.
He doesn't
so she's like, you can come in and see the video. It's on video. And I was like, it's on video. She's like, yes, all the kids videoed it. And I was like, did Montgomery video? And she's like, no, because he knows. I'm like, you don't video things. Like, that's how you get in trouble. You don't video things. You need to be around. So I go in and I was like, I really don't think he was involved. Like, I feel like there's a misunderstanding, but yes, I'll come in and I'll watch. So I literally, she's showing me the thing. There's a group of kids. Now, first of all, they got, were you back? Did your kids do this? There was like a slap boxing thing. They're like friends and they like say, it's so stupid, but it's not like they were actually trying to hurt each other. They do the slapping thing.
Well, we used to play that game when we were kids too. It was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So all of a sudden I see everyone's back here filming. And my kid, who was short at the time, jumps on like something higher so he could see. And he's like looking down and you see him like, oh, like this. And I'm like, okay. Well, clearly he was there, but he was not a watch out. They're like, didn't you see him look? And I was like, okay, he is not watching. He is watching what's going on there. Look how he looks at the kid. And she's like, all right, you're right. Cause if he was a watch out, he was going to get suspended. Okay. So that's why I was like, first of all, this is like, he's never been in trouble. I think we need to ask, more questions here. And she's like, all right, Mrs. Hahn. But I was like, he wasn't the watch out. So literally when he came home, I was, he's like, how much trouble am I? I'm like, well, you're in trouble because I've told you to be aware of your surroundings. Did you look straight ahead and see there was 30 phones filming in your direction?
Right.
So the whole thing is you standing on the stupid block because you can't see.
Reacting.
I know you weren't the watch out, but you were told. And he's like, Ma, you would have watched. And I'm like, whether I would have watched or not, if the kids weren't really hurting each other, they were like being stupid and silly. Yes, I probably would have stopped, but I wouldn't have been on that side of the phone. I would have been behind them.
Yeah.
I was like, all the kids behind didn't get in trouble. I was like, because you were like,
Yeah, it's really hard. Like, and it's there's the fine line of like consequences because I grew up with if you get in
Yes.
trouble at school, you got in trouble at home. Teachers were
Oh,
the
totally.
final thing. But then there's also like there we do have to. For example, my son was in first grade, second grade. I was second grade, and there was a little boy who had been exposed to a lot. He had an uncle that lived with them that was like a teenager and babysat a
Right.
lot, so he had seen a lot of inappropriate movies, magazines, things. So this little
Right.
boy
Oh,
kind of
jeez.
right. This little boy began to try to force kiss girls on the playground.
Oh
Okay,
no.
and say really like literally like I want to. I'll just tell you what he said. I want to be naked with you. We make a baby. Like he didn't. He didn't. I don't think he knew what it meant, but he kept trying to
Right.
force kiss the girls because he had seen some inappropriate stuff. So I had heard that my son told me like he does that. And I said, you can't let him do that. You either, you got to tell him to stop it. You have to tell the teacher, you don't let that happen. It's not right. So that's
Right.
the conversation that we have. The next day he goes to school and there was a little girl that the, the kid that was trying to kiss her. She ran behind my son. When the kid ran around, tried to get around him, my son popped him. Okay. He has no business hitting people. He was completely wrong. But they wanted to suspend him. And I said, you can? Or it was in school. I said, you can, but I'm going to come and sit with him the entire time. I said,
Right. Right.
he does deserve, he shouldn't have put his hands, but they had told the teacher. The teacher was not paying attention. They had been telling the
Right.
teacher. So I don't know what you expect an 8-year-old who is honorable to do in this situation. She needed
Right.
protection. She ran to him. He hit the kid and said, stop it. He didn't beat him up. He didn't lay him down on the ground and spit on him, kick on him. He said, and the kid
Right.
stopped. I'm like, I guess I don't know what to say. You're right. He deserves to get in trouble for hitting because hitting is not okay ever, ever, ever. But in a child's mind, it is.
Well, he was trying. He was like, "I'm going to protect." Well, that's the thing. It's such. There's like a lot of not communication, and I understand like schools have to like, well, we need no, he can't do that. We have to like show the other kids that that's not okay, and it's like, oh, I mean, that part of parenting, but that part of parenting is always right. I mean, maybe our parents didn't know everything, but it's always those kind of waters. Like, hey, just be good and look around you and make sure, like, if someone needs help, you go help them.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
we were
just
lucky.
be a good citizen.
The girls' parents came in and said, do not punish him. That is not, plus it was a Catholic school and we were paying for that education. So they had to listen to us just a little bit, but it is what it is. I allowed him to have detention before school and after school for a week because you don't put your hands on people. But I think
Right.
I didn't want to stop that part of him that cared about other people.
Right. And he was like, right. And when you're that age, sometimes you don't know what you're doing. No, totally. Well, we're going to end this, even though I could talk to you for
I
hours and
adore you.
hours. I totally adore you. And I can't wait to come. And when you're like, I'm going to meet you on the road.
I
Like,
think
I'm so
are
excited.
you close to West Nyack?
Yeah. So I'm out in Long Island at the beach, but
So then you're coming to Governors on May 13th. Come to Governors on May 13th.
Oh my God. May 13th. I'm writing it down.
It's
so
Mother's
excited.
Day weekend, May 13th. It's also my birthday weekend.
Oh, happy birthday. Oh my God. I love that. Well, I have to read because we do have 2 sponsors. So I'm going to read them really quickly. So Together Women Rise is dedicated to ensuring that every woman and girl has the opportunity to live freely, pursue her dreams, and reach her full potential. We are a powerful community of women and allies engaged in learning, giving, and community building. Visit togetherwomenrise.org. That's .org to learn more and join them. You guys, you have to go, just check out their website because they're doing such amazing things, not just in the United States, but all throughout the world and really making a difference in equality, but also helping communities, help all, not just women, but help men to create and be able to serve their families and have, I mean, I can't even tell you, they did something in Ethiopia where they gave, and I think it was Ethiopia, this farming land, this little plot, and they taught them how to farm. And now it's gone to like millions of people. Like, so
That's
this is a
wonderful.
really great organization. So again, it's togetherwomenrise.org. And the other one is, have you ever been listening to your favorite podcast and that moment comes up? Like just here, have you guys been listening to this and you're like, oh, I want to share that with someone? Well, now you can with an app called Picked Cherries. So instead of sending the whole episode, you can go on Picked Cherries and get just a little snippet, and that's called Picked Cherries. And you can share it with your friends and family. So you're not just sending a whole episode, because how many times do you send your friend like a whole episode and they're like, yeah, I don't have time for it. But you send them a little, it's almost like sending a TikTok or an IG, and they can listen to that little part and then they can get involved in your favorite podcast. Again, it's available at Android and iOS, and that's called Picked Cherries. Definitely check it out and download that and start listening to your favorite podcast on there.
Awesome.
So
Fun.
yes, some fun stuff. So I cannot wait. Tammy, thank you again. Sorry for the confusion in the beginning, but I just absolutely adore you. I could do this forever. I mean, we could, go out and have drinks and really talk forever and just make each other laugh.
We definitely are going to do that, and it's no problem. Listen, we made it work, so we'll talk again soon. I'm sure you and I are going to talk a whole bunch. Good to see you.
You too. All right, everyone. Thank you, and thanks, Tammy, and wherever you guys are listening, thank you for joining YNS Live. I'm Juliette Hahn, and we will